Most people work 40 years to retire poor, not because they didn't earn, but because they didn't learn. They didn't learn how money works. They didn't learn how wealth is built. And they certainly didn't learn how to think like the wealthy. See, the wealthy live by principles, not paychecks. They don't just earn, they allocate. They don't chase trends, they build systems. They're not emotional with money. They're intentional. And the best part, anyone can start. Even the one who's just clocking in today. Every paycheck contains two options, survive or strategize. You can use it to get by, or you can use it to build something greater. And let me tell you, discipline is the difference. Focus is the fuel. Financial thinking is the foundation. You don't need a new job to start building wealth. You need a new philosophy. So today we're going to dig into how the wealthy use their minds before they use their money. How they build wealth quietly while others are distracted. How they stay rich, not just by making more, but by thinking better. Because the path from employee to wealth builder is paved with principles. Let's walk it together. Let me tell you something that changed my life early on. If you don't design your own future, someone else will do it for you, and chances are they won't design much. Most people drift. They live reactive lives. They wake up Monday, go to work, spend what they earn, and repeat the cycle year after year. But wealth builders, they operate differently. They don't drift, they drive. They don't live by default, they live by design. And it all begins with something most people overlook, a long-term vision. You've got to ask yourself a powerful question. Where do I want to be in 10 years? Not just financially, though that's a major part, but also, what kind of person do I want to become? Where do I want to live? What skills will I have mastered? What assets will I own? What kind of freedom will I experience? Because here's the truth. Wealth is not an accident. It's built with intention, clarity, and discipline, and most importantly, with time. I remember when I was broke and frustrated. I was working hard but going nowhere. One of my early mentors sat me down and said, "You've got to create a vision so strong that it pulls you forward. Then piece by piece, you work backward from that." That's what we call reverse engineering. If your goal is to be financially free in 10 years, perhaps living off the income from your investments or business systems, then we have to ask, what needs to happen in 5 years to be halfway there? In 3 years to build momentum? In 1 year to create foundation? And what must happen this quarter, this month, this week, and today? So, the game plan becomes this. We don't just dream about wealth, we schedule it. We take that 10-year vision and we start building a calendar. Not someday, today. If your goal is to have a $1 million investment portfolio in a decade, then you'd better know what that means annually, perhaps, $100,000 a year. Then break it down monthly, $8,300. Then weekly, maybe it's $2,000 into an asset or learning something that generates income. Because what gets scheduled gets done. But let's be honest, most people don't plan that far. They think next weekend. The wealthy think in decades, and that's why they win. See, a 10-year vision doesn't just give you direction, it gives you power. It helps you say no to the trivial and yes to what truly matters. It forces you to live aligned with the future you're building. And the most beautiful part is this. Once you begin to act in harmony with that future, momentum starts working in your favor. Life begins to respond to someone who is moving with clarity and purpose. I knew a man who once wrote out his 10-year vision on a single sheet of paper and kept it in his wallet. Every time he'd go to spend, waste time, or get distracted, he'd pull it out. It reminded him of the man he was becoming, not just the man he was. And over the years, he became that vision. That's the power of clarity. That's the discipline of a wealth builder. So here's the charge. Create your 10-year wealth plan. Write it down. Break it down. Schedule it. And then show up for it every day because the future you want is waiting for the discipline you show today. It's easy to be impressed by income. Someone says they make $10,000 a month and suddenly they've got attention, status, admiration. But here's what most people don't realize. High income doesn't mean wealth. In fact, it can often mask financial weakness. I've known folks who earn six figures and are still living paycheck to paycheck. And I've known others earning modest wages who quietly built themselves into millionaires. The difference isn't how much they earn, it's how they think about money. You've got to stop measuring your life by net income and start thinking in terms of net worth. Income is just the inflow. Net worth is what's left after you subtract the liabilities from the assets. That's the real scoreboard. It tells the truth. And it's why someone earning $4,000 a month but saving and investing $1,000 is often wealthier in spirit, in habits, and in actual assets than the person spending every dollar of their $10,000 income. I remember when I was first starting to see real results in my life and my income was growing. That's when temptation really shows up. You see, lifestyle creep is sneaky. You make a little more, so you buy the nicer car. You get the promotion, and suddenly your weekends get more expensive. But what does that do? It traps you. You're earning more, but not getting ahead, just maintaining a more expensive version of broke. Wealthy thinkers operate differently. When their income goes up, their investments go up with it. They treat extra income as fuel for the future, not fireworks for the weekend. One practical principle I learned and still apply today is this. When your income increases, only increase your lifestyle by a small percentage, say 25%. The rest, invest it, save it, deploy it. If you get a $1,000 raise, maybe upgrade your lifestyle by $250. But let that other $750 build your net worth. That's how you move from high income to high impact. Because here's what matters, your freedom. And freedom doesn't come from income, it comes from margin. Margin gives you choice, margin gives you peace. And margin gives you the power to say no when everyone else feels forced to say yes. When your net worth starts to grow, you move from survival to stability. And from stability to significance, that's the path of wealth. And it starts with thinking differently. Don't get caught up in chasing income for appearance. Chase value. Build assets. Track your net worth like a hawk. Check it monthly, even weekly. Know where you stand. Because the person who watches over their finances with care will always have more than the one who ignores them in pursuit of the next raise. Remember, wealth is not built in the paycheck, it's built in the gap between what you earn and what you keep. So think net worth, guard your margins, and never let income fool you into thinking you're free. When it comes to wealth, most people lose not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack perspective. They're thinking about the next paycheck, the next bill, the next weekend. They're in a constant state of reaction. But let me tell you, real wealth doesn't live in reaction. It lives in vision. And vision is long-term. Wealthy minds don't ask, quote, what can I afford this month? They ask, what do I want my life to look like 10 years from now, and how do I start building toward that today? You see, the person who thinks in decades will always outperform the person who thinks in days. That's the power of long-term vision. It gives your daily actions meaning. It aligns your habits with something greater than impulse. I remember when I first began to shift my thinking, when I stopped asking, how much can I make this year? And started asking, what would it take to be financially free in 10 years? That question changed everything. Because suddenly, my decisions had direction. Most people never take the time to define their vision. They think it's optional. But vision is the blueprint. You wouldn't start building a house without a plan, right? Yet people build their lives that way, paycheck by paycheck, year by year, with no clear design. That's why they end up somewhere they never intended to be. But not you. You can change that today. Here's a practical exercise that changed my life and can change yours. Write a letter to your future self. Make it vivid. Picture your home, your income, your investments, your relationships. Where do you live? What kind of freedom do you have? How does money flow into your life? Who are you helping? Now, with that clear picture in mind, begin to reverse engineer it. If your vision includes owning 3 properties, what habits do you need today to get there? If it includes earning $250,000 a year in passive income, what skills, investments, and sacrifices are required along the way? Break it down into yearly targets, then into quarterly steps, then into weekly action. That's how you turn a dream into a strategy. Thinking long-term gives you strength. Because when the temptation comes to waste, to scroll, to spend, to skip, you remember, I'm building something bigger than this moment. The future becomes louder than your impulses. And that's when wealth starts to take root. I've seen poor people think rich and become rich. And I've seen rich people think poor and lose it all. The difference? Long-term thinking. The ability to delay, to discipline, to dream and build in that direction. Don't let the urgency of the now rob you of the freedom of the later. Start today by thinking 10 years ahead and let that future version of you guide the present one. That's how legacies are built. Saying yes feels good in the moment. That shiny new gadget, that tempting meal out, that impulsive getaway these moments whisper to us, you deserve it. And maybe you do. But here's the truth most never stop to consider. Every yes today comes with a no tomorrow. When you say yes to every short-term pleasure, you're often saying no to your long-term wealth. The wealthy understand this. They've mastered the art of saying no note because they're stingy, or rigid but because they're clear on where they're going. Now, I'm not talking about living like a monk. I'm not saying you should deny yourself every joy in life. But I am saying that the person who can say no when it counts is the one who eventually earns the right to say yes when it really matters. Every dollar you spend has direction. It either builds your future or delays it. The poor spend emotionally and justify later. The wealthy pause, reflect, and ask, does this align with my long-term plan? And if it doesn't, they're not afraid to walk away. One of the most practical tools I ever used was what I call the 24-hour rule. Before making any purchase over a certain amount, say $100, give it a full day, don't decide in the store. Don't click buy now, just wait. Because in that waiting period, emotion fades and logic returns. It gives your vision a chance to speak louder than your feelings. I've saved thousands of dollars not by being smarter, but by being slower. Time is a great filter. And here's the other truth: most of what we buy impulsively doesn't improve our lives in any meaningful way. It becomes clutter. It becomes another subscription, another item collecting dust, another thing to manage. The real joy comes not from accumulation, but from alignment when your spending matches your values, your vision, and your goals. You see, discipline isn't about restriction, it's about intention. It's not about saying no to everything, it's about saying no to what doesn't matter so you can say yes to what does. Every time you say no to the unnecessary, you're saying yes to freedom, opportunity, and peace of mind. Wealth isn't built through earning alone. It's built through clarity and the courage to walk away from what's good so you can build what's great. So, let me leave you with this. Before your next unplanned purchase, give it 24 hours. Ask yourself, does this serve my future or just soothe my present? If it still makes sense, go ahead. If not, redirect it into savings, into investing, into something that moves you closer to the life you truly want. Wealthy people don't say no because they have to, they say no because they choose to. Most people want to grow, but few are willing to measure. They want to build wealth, get ahead, and break free, but they do it with their eyes closed. And let me tell you something I've learned. What gets measured gets improved. If you're not tracking, you're guessing. And when it comes to money, guessing is expensive. See, the wealthy don't hope they're growing, they know. They don't cross their fingers at the end of the month, they check their numbers. They look at their net worth like a pilot checks altitude. Because in life, just like in flight, if you drift too long without checking your direction, you could be headed for a crash without realizing it. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need to be an accountant. You just need a system. I used a simple notebook when I started, just a sheet that tracked three things: how much I earned, how much I spent, and how much I kept. That's it. And every month, I'd sit down, no distractions, and ask myself a question that changed everything. Did I grow or drift? It's an honest question. Some months I grew, other months I drifted. But I always knew. I always saw it. And because I saw it, I could course correct before small slips turned into big setbacks. That's the power of tracking. It doesn't just reveal the truth, it gives you the power to change it. These days, it's even easier. You've got apps, spreadsheets, and tools that make it automatic, but don't let the technology become the goal. The goal is clarity, because clarity gives you control. And when you have control over your money, you begin to feel peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having $1 million, but the kind that comes from knowing exactly where every dollar is going and why. Now, here's where the transformation begins. When you start tracking, you begin to notice patterns. You notice how small leaks add up those daily coffees, the unused subscriptions, the impulsive buys. And when you see them, you can fix them. But even more importantly, you begin to notice the positive. You see where your investments are growing. You see how your net worth starts to climb. And that fuels your discipline. Remember, wealth isn't just built through income, it's built through insight. Most people think the answer to financial success is make more money. But the truth is, you can't outrun poor habits with a bigger paycheck. The answer is to manage well what you already have. Because if you can't manage $1,000, you won't manage $10,000. And if you can't manage $10,000, you'll waste $100,000. But if you learn to track and measure, even a little, you're setting the foundation for more. So here's what I'd recommend. Pick one day a month, put it on your calendar, and make it your financial review day. Pull up your spreadsheet or app and look at your numbers. Ask that powerful question: did I grow or drift? And if you drifted, adjust. If you grew, celebrate, but don't get complacent. The goal isn't just to get rich. The goal is to get responsible. And once you become responsible, wealth can finally trust you. Track what matters, because money, like anything valuable, deserves attention, and when you give it that, it starts to multiply. You know, getting wealthy is one thing, but staying wealthy, now that's a whole different discipline. You've probably heard stories of people who built fortunes only to lose it all within a few years. Athletes, entertainers, even lottery winners, millions earned, millions gone. And every time, the same pattern shows up. More lifestyle than wisdom, more spending than stewardship. Here's the truth: wealth isn't just about what you accumulate, it's about what you sustain. And sustaining wealth isn't a matter of luck, it's a matter of philosophy. It's about keeping your roots deep, even when your branches stretch wide. When I first started making real money, the temptation to expand my lifestyle came quickly. A nicer car, a bigger house, better clothes, and sure, it's okay to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But if every dollar you earn finds its way into something flashy instead of something foundational, you're not building wealth, you're building an illusion. So the key is this: when your income rises, your discipline must rise faster. If your lifestyle grows faster than your wisdom, your success will become your downfall. That's why I made a simple rule for myself. Never let my expenses grow at the same pace as my income. Every time I earned more, I'd upgrade my investments, not my image. See, real wealth is quiet. It's what you don't see that often tells the real story. The man with the modest car and the healthy investment portfolio, he's got wealth. The man with the luxury car and nothing in savings, that's lifestyle. And lifestyle without stewardship is just a countdown to trouble. So what do the wealthy do once they get there? They reinvest. Not just in money, but in people, systems, causes, and long-term structures that keep multiplying value. They buy assets that generate cash flow, They build systems that produce without their constant effort. They give because generosity keeps the soul from becoming arrogant. And they practice gratitude because it's easy to forget how far you've come when you're surrounded by more. Now let me tell you something else. Staying wealthy takes humility. You've got to stay a student. The moment you think you've arrived, you start slipping. That's why I kept reading, kept asking questions, kept listening to those wiser than me. Because wealth, like a garden, doesn't stay beautiful by accident. It takes maintenance. I've seen men destroy a decade of discipline with a single year of ego. They stopped reviewing their plans, they stopped saying no, they stopped practicing gratitude, and little by little they became careless. Don't fall into that trap. No matter how much you make, remember who you were when you had little. Keep that humility close. It'll guard your heart and your bank account. And let's not forget, giving is a critical part of staying wealthy. Not just for charity, but for your character. Giving breaks the grip of greed. It says, I don't serve money, money serves me. The more you give, the more you prove to yourself that you're not a slave to your wealth, you're a steward of it. So when you get there, and I hope you do, don't let the spotlight blind you. Stay grounded, keep investing, keep giving, keep learning. That's the real wealth. And when you learn to manage it with wisdom, you won't just keep it, you'll multiply it in ways that matter for generations. That inner world of yours, the thoughts you think, the standards you keep, the way you handle yourself when no one's watching, that's where wealth begins. Most people are so focused on building financial capital that they forget the first capital is mental. I've seen people earn big but lose it all because they hadn't yet built the inner foundation to support what they received. They didn't fail financially, they failed mentally, long before the numbers caught up. You see, poor minds create chaos with money, not because they're bad people, but because their thoughts aren't organized. They haven't built systems for the mind. And when the mind is cluttered, the money follows the same path, scattered, emotional, erratic. But the wealthy think differently. They know that before you master the stock market, you've got to master your emotional market. This is why I encourage daily reflection. Take 10 minutes in the morning to journal your thoughts. Ask, quote, what do I want from this day? And how will today build toward the life I'm designing? When the mind is clear, decisions become simpler. You no longer react, you respond. There's power in writing things down. When you write down what you value, it becomes harder to betray it. That kind of self-alignment protects your finances like nothing else can. Gratitude's another key. You'd be amazed how many people destroy their wealth because they're driven by comparison, always chasing more, always needing to look like they're ahead of someone else. But when you practice gratitude daily, not just for what you have, but for who you're becoming, it grounds you. It stops you from chasing illusions and anchors you in reality. I remember when I started practicing this consistently. Every evening I'd write down 3 things I was grateful for. And I noticed something strange. I became more disciplined with my money. Why? Because I wasn't operating out of lack. I wasn't spending to fill a hole. I was already full. And from that fullness, I was able to build wealth with patience instead of panic. Mental wealth also requires clarity. Who are you becoming? What are your standards? If you don't define them, the world will do it for you. The advertisements, the opinions, the trends, they'll pull you in every direction unless you're anchored. So I ask, have you taken the time to design your mental environment the way you want it? Have you scheduled solitude to think, plan, and reset? And let's not forget about self-control. You can't build financial order while living in emotional chaos. You've got to train yourself to pause when you're tempted, to reflect before you react. Every time you choose reflection over impulse, you're building internal wealth. You're proving to yourself that you're not ruled by urges but guided by principles. The bottom line is this: money magnifies who you already are. If you're undisciplined with $1,000, you'll be a disaster with $100,000. But if you've learned to manage your thoughts, your habits, your emotions, that money won't change you. It will amplify your strength. So if you want to become wealthy, don't just study money. Study yourself. Build that inner clarity. Practice that daily discipline. Because the world pays those who manage themselves well. And when your mind becomes a place of peace, your finances start to follow suit. One of the greatest assets you'll ever build isn't just a bank account, it's a diversified mind. You see, people often talk about diversifying their income, their investments, their portfolio, and yes, that matters. But what's even more important is diversifying your wisdom. A wealthy mind doesn't rely on one voice, one method, one narrow path. It draws insight from multiple fields and filters it through experience. That kind of mind becomes like compound interest, growing, layering, and strengthening with time. It amazes me how many people want financial freedom, yet they never stretch their thinking beyond their industry, their upbringing, or their current environment. They read one book, attend one seminar, and think they've arrived. But wealth isn't built on one idea. It's built on understanding patterns, systems, psychology, behavior, economics, and human nature. The more varied your sources of learning, the more adaptable your thinking becomes. And wealth favors the adaptable. Let me give you a practical strategy I used in my early journey. I decided that every 30 days I'd rotate what I read. 1 month I'd read a book on money investing, saving, taxes. The next I'd read something on mindset, how people think, how beliefs are formed, how to build discipline. And then I'd pick up a book on habits, productivity, or decision making. Over time, that rhythm built a mental structure where ideas didn't compete, they complemented. Suddenly, I wasn't just reading about how to earn money. I was reading about how to keep it, multiply it, and not sabotage it. That was the difference. When you read widely and intentionally, something beautiful happens. You begin to see connections others miss. You see how the discipline of an athlete relates to the patience of an investor. You recognize how the principles in philosophy echo the principles of wealth. You understand why someone loses their fortune not because of a bad investment, but because they lack the emotional conditioning to manage sudden success. It all begins to tie together. This is also how you guard yourself from dangerous trends. When you're only listening to one voice, one influencer, one guru, one podcast, you're not growing, you're narrowing. But when you stretch across disciplines, your thinking deepens. You stop chasing shortcuts and start building depth. That's when you become unshakable. And here's the real secret. Diversified wisdom makes you more valuable. It makes you a better leader, partner, investor, and problem solver. You show up differently. You speak with more insight. People begin to trust you not because you have all the answers, but because they sense you've studied many of the right questions. So ask yourself, are you just collecting facts, or are you cultivating depth? Are you only listening to those who already agree with you? Or are you seeking out new perspectives that challenge you to grow? Because wealth isn't just about stacking dollars, it's about stacking insight. When you diversify your wisdom, you train your mind to attract, manage, and multiply wealth in ways others simply can't. And when your wisdom becomes multidimensional, so does your success. If you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And let me tell you, what others have planned for you usually isn't much. It's a pattern I've seen countless times in people who never take control of their finances or their future. They float through life letting advertising, peer pressure, and the demands of the moment dictate their spending, their savings, and ultimately their destiny. Think about this. How often do you buy things because you saw a flashy ad or because your friends have them? How many times have you spent money to fit in, to feel accepted, or to momentarily escape stress? These decisions chip away at your freedom, not because the money disappears, but because your energy and focus are hijacked by forces outside your control. Wealthy people don't operate this way. They know the value of intentional living. They are architects of their own lives. They take the time to design a plan, not just a vague hope, but a clear blueprint for where their money goes and what their life looks like in the future. Every dollar is assigned a purpose before it leaves their hands. Savings, investments, giving, and expenses are all intentional acts aligned with their vision. The process begins with writing down your goals. Not the kind you whisper once and forget, but the kind you revisit and refine regularly. Goals give you direction. But even more powerful than goals are the systems you put in place to support those goals. Automatic transfers to savings, regular reviews of your spending, weekly check-ins on your progress. These habits create momentum. I remember when I first started taking control of my own finances. It was not glamorous or fast, but every week I'd look at my bank statement, track my expenses, and adjust my plan. That simple act gave me control. It turned money from something that ruled me into a tool I could wield. If you leave your money to chance, you'll drift into habits you don't want, situations you didn't plan for, and stress you could avoid. But when you become intentional, you create a foundation that supports freedom, growth, and peace of mind. Be the architect of your financial future. Don't let your life be an accident. Take the pen, draft your plan, assign your dollars, and build a life that's designed by you, not dictated by others. That's where true wealth begins. There's a truth that's simple, yet profound. We all must suffer one of two pains in life, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. It's a choice that's always there, quietly waiting for you to decide which you'll embrace. You see, every dollar you don't save, every opportunity you let slip by, every moment you waste without purpose, all of those add up. They don't just disappear, they show up later as regret. Financial regret, to be exact. That heavy feeling of wondering, what if I had done things differently? The pain of discipline is short-term and purposeful. It's the discomfort you feel when you say no to unnecessary spending, when you stick to your budget even though temptations call, when you delay gratification to invest in your future. It might mean passing on that new gadget, skipping a night out, or cutting back on luxuries you don't truly need. That pain is temporary. It's a brief discomfort that builds strength, character, and, most importantly, financial freedom. The wealthy understand this. They know that discipline isn't punishment, it's a strategy. They choose the short-term pain of staying focused, of controlling impulses, and of working with intention. They embrace budgeting not as a cage, but as a roadmap. They say no to distractions because they say yes to their future. They accept discomfort today so they can enjoy peace tomorrow. This is the kind of pain that pays dividends. On the other hand, the pain of regret is long-lasting and heavy. It comes from living without control, from watching money slip through your fingers, from missed chances and unprepared moments. It's the feeling of stress that creeps in when bills pile up or emergencies strike and you have nothing saved. It's the quiet voice that says, I should have done better. I wish I had been disciplined. That pain drags on and weighs down your spirit far longer than the brief pinch of discipline. I've met countless people who wish they had chosen differently earlier in life. They tell stories of missed opportunities, business ventures they didn't start, savings plans they ignored, lessons they postponed. The regret isn't just about money, it's about lost freedom, lost time, and lost potential. But here's the good news. The pain of regret is avoidable. It can be replaced by the pain of discipline if only you decide today to choose wisely. Remember, discipline is a form of self-respect. It's honoring your future self by making hard choices now. It's investing in your dreams through consistent action. You don't have to love the process, but you must respect the outcome. When you develop discipline, you build a fortress around your wealth, a shield against stress, lack, and uncertainty. So, I urge you to embrace the pain of discipline now. Let it be the seed that grows your financial freedom. The discipline you practice today is the foundation of the legacy you'll leave tomorrow. Choose your pain wisely, because it will shape your life far more than you realize. As we come to the close of this conversation about how the wealthy get and stay rich through discipline, focus, and financial thinking, I want to leave you with a message that will echo in your heart long after these words are spoken. Wealth is not some distant dream reserved for a lucky few or those born into fortune. Wealth is a state of mind, a way of living, and a result of consistent choices day after day, year after year. If you truly want to move from being an employee to a wealth builder, if you want to break free from financial worry and step into the life of abundance you deserve, then listen carefully, because the road is clear and it begins with you. First, understand that wealth is not magic. It's not a lottery ticket or a secret formula hidden from you. Wealth is the natural outcome of certain habits, decisions, and thinking patterns. The wealthy don't just get rich, they stay rich because they master the fundamentals of discipline. They say no to impulses that lead nowhere and yes to consistent actions that build a solid foundation. They focus on what matters and ignore distractions that waste time and money. They think financially, always looking at how every dollar, every hour, and every decision contributes to their net worth, not just their paycheck. Remember, the discipline you cultivate today will determine your options tomorrow. If you can learn to delay gratification, to invest rather than spend, to plan rather than drift, you are setting yourself up for freedom. Freedom not only from financial struggle, but from the anxiety and stress that come with it. Freedom to choose how you live, where you go, and who you become. Freedom to write your own story, rather than being trapped in someone else's plan. Now, focus is your greatest ally. In a world overflowing with distractions, focus is what separates those who accumulate wealth from those who accumulate excuses. Focus means you don't scatter your efforts. You concentrate your energy on the few things that move the needle: your savings, your investments, your skills, and your mindset. It means setting clear goals and breaking them down into manageable steps, reviewing your progress regularly, and adjusting course when necessary. The wealthy aren't perfect. They just persist with focused action, even when motivation fades. Financial thinking means thinking like a steward, not a spender. It means understanding that money is a tool neither good nor evil, but powerful when wielded wisely. The wealthy see money as energy to be directed with intention. They track it, allocate it, grow it, and protect it. They educate themselves continuously, knowing that financial literacy is their armor and weapon. They don't fear money. They respect it. They don't chase quick wins. They build lasting systems. This mindset is what transforms small savings into growing wealth and fleeting income into generational legacy. But beyond discipline, focus, and financial thinking, there is something even more powerful: your mindset about yourself. The wealthy think like wealth builders. They believe that with effort and wisdom, they can create the life they envision. They don't see obstacles as stop signs. They see them as stepping stones. They welcome challenges as opportunities to grow. They know failure is not final, it's feedback. You must adopt this same mindset, not just for money, but for life. From my own experience, I can tell you that these principles work because I've lived them. I've seen the transformation that happens when someone decides to stop making excuses and start making plans. When they stop chasing fleeting pleasures and start investing in long-term freedom. When they stop drifting and start designing. The change is not overnight, but it is inevitable. Success is the sum of small disciplines repeated daily. Wealth is a journey, not a race. So what do you do now? What is your next step? Begin today. Start with clarity. Define what wealth means to you. Is it freedom, security, legacy? Write it down. Create your 10-year vision and map the steps backward to today. Schedule those actions. Make them non-negotiable. Build discipline through small wins. Say no to just one unnecessary expense this week. Say yes to saving or investing instead. Practice saying no until it becomes natural. Set up automatic transfers so your savings happen without struggle. Focus on learning. Commit to 30 minutes of reading or listening to wisdom every day. Feed your mind with ideas that expand your financial understanding and personal growth. Track your money and your progress. Use tools that make it easy. Review weekly, reflect monthly, and adjust quarterly. Know where you are so you can know where to go. Guard your mindset fiercely. Replace scarcity with abundance. Replace fear with faith in your ability to change. Replace distraction with deliberate action. Remember, poverty begins in the mind long before it touches your wallet. Above all, remember this truth. You are the architect of your future. If you don't design your life and finances intentionally, someone else will design them for you, and their design likely doesn't include your dreams. Wealth is not about what you make, it's about what you keep, grow, and give. It's not about having more, it's about becoming more. When you commit to discipline, focus, and financial thinking, you don't just change your bank account, you change your destiny. So start now. Choose the pain of discipline over the pain of regret. Set your vision. Take one step today, then another tomorrow, and another the day after. Consistency will carry you through when motivation falters. Your journey from employee to wealth builder begins with a decision to think differently, act differently, and live differently. Choose to be that person today, and the wealth you seek will find you waiting. Remember, it's not the years in your life, but the life in your years. Build wealth not just to live, but to live well with freedom, purpose, and joy. Now go forward, focused and disciplined, and create a life of abundance that lasts beyond your years.